My name is Laura Joy Baldwin, and I'm an artist. I mostly paint with acrylic on canvas, and my art has been displayed in several local shops in Kalispell, Montana, USA. My art is currently being featured at Phillips Studio and Gallery, also in Kalispell, Montana. Throughout my life, I've taken kind of overview art classes, but I haven't really taken anything specifically for painting. So I'd say that generally I've been self-taught as far as acrylic painting goes. I really didn't know how to use it before I started painting in 2020. There was a very short period of time, about 8 years ago, that I painted a couple of paintings with acrylic paint. 3 were abstract, and 1 was a beach scene of a beach in San Francisco that I really liked. In 2020, I just had this desire to kind of try to express myself with paint on canvas. I was living in Hawaii at the time, and it was right before the COVID stuff started up, maybe in January or February of 2020. And I went to the store and chose a bunch of colors that inspired me. And I just started putting the paint on canvas, playing around with colors, and just painting abstract paintings. I didn't really incorporate faces or portraits in my paintings until later on that year. And then an acquaintance friend of mine asked if any of them were available to purchase. And that was really helpful for me because I realized that when I paint portraits, it's interesting to other people rather than just myself. But I really started painting because I needed to find a way to express certain emotions and kind of memories. I had flashbacks that kept coming up over and over. And there were just certain things that happened in my life that I needed to share without really vocally sharing all of the details. Even journaling was pretty difficult, writing down the specific words of what I was feeling or whatever. So painting was a way that I could share, kind of like a diary entry, without having to put it into words. I'm originally from Sonoma County in Northern California, and I grew up with 3 sisters and no brothers. My sisters are pretty much my best friends, so that was really cool because I hear a lot about, like, especially brother and sister, I guess, relationship where they hate each other and they want to kill each other. My sisters and I definitely had arguments, but we didn't really want to kill each other. So I'm glad that we didn't experience those emotions or that feeling towards each other. I was also in Christian missions with Youth with a Mission, also known as YWAM. During the time that I was with YWAM, I traveled around the world to a lot of different places: India, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, France, Spain, the Philippines, and the missions campus was based out of Kailua Kona, Hawaii. That was an amazing place to be, especially as an artist. This was, of course, before I knew that I was going to really get serious into painting, but it was where some of the inspiration for my paintings started because of the colors and being near the ocean and then traveling around the world, the cultures, the traditions, the fashion, even the food, architecture, their art. It just all is very inspiring creatively, and you can definitely see those inspirations incorporated into my art in different ways. And I think that people can also pick up on the French influence in my artwork. I've loved France ever since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I really wanted to go to France and Finally, when I was in missions, I was able to go to France. I've had a lifelong fascination with French things. When I traveled to Paris, it was just as amazing as I thought, maybe even more amazing than I thought it was going to be. Growing up in California really helped me to dream and create. There's so much inspiration everywhere. Like the ocean, the city meaning San Francisco. I lived there a couple of years after I graduated from the local junior college. In California, it's really easy access to a lot of different things that people more inland USA don't really get access to as easily. I really appreciated growing up in California and just experiencing all of these things from different parts of the world in one place. I loved driving on Highway 101, just being able to go to the city, be around a lot of people, be inspired by the busyness and the craziness of the city, and then also be able to just drive 20 minutes to get to different beaches and be able to be in that peaceful place away from people. I liked being able to do both of those things. Growing up with three sisters, we definitely inspired each other in our different ways to create, and we all liked to draw, and we liked to do makeup on each other, and we made fashion collages from magazines we got from the thrift stores. So I think that that's one of the reasons why I like portraits. I've always loved looking at faces, and with makeup, it's kind of like paint on the face, or like creating a painting on a face. In high school, I really liked really thick eyeliner, and my classmates were just like, you do your eyeliner really thick, and kind of like they were saying it doesn't look that great, but I didn't really care because I liked it. So I think that translates into my art. Dramatic color, just anything dramatic and abnormal. Yeah, I really like that. I did have the privilege of taking art classes even when I was pretty young. I think I was like 9 years old or so. There was a class where the teacher was talking about Georgia O'Keeffe's life story. I just thought that was really interesting. She's just a really interesting person. And I remember the pictures and the books that the teacher was showing, and the colors that Georgia O'Keeffe painted in her artwork, the painted flowers. It was really deep, rich color that Georgia O'Keeffe used, and I was inspired by her work. And then growing up, we were really close to San Francisco, so we got to go to different art museums like the De Young, the Legion of Honor, and the Asian Art Museum. Art museums were some of my favorite places to go, and I loved being able to look at all the art in person. When you look at all these pieces of art, you can feel the emotion and see the richness of the colors and the textures. All of those things really, I think, led up to me choosing to paint when I started painting in 2020, because I had that background of experiencing and seeing art. There's an artist that was featured at Asian Art Museum. I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but Zhu Jinshi. He was featured at the Asian Art Museum in 2015. And I still think about when I saw his art displayed there at the museum. It was like his art was so thickly laid on the canvas, and I hadn't seen anything like that before. I think he said it took about a month or even more to dry for like one layer, and he had so many layers. It was a new, unconventional idea to me that people could paint like that and call it art and actually have their art sold around the world and displayed for a lot of people to see. So I was really influenced by that. He also had a calligraphy paper sculpture kind of tunnel display there at the Asian Art Museum. You could actually walk through the tunnel with the hanging art, calligraphy paper all around you and overhead. It was like you were walking through a piece of artwork. I feel like I'm influenced by Picasso, but it wasn't until kind of later on, because people kept saying, "Oh, your work looks, or your faces look kind of Picasso-y." And of course, I had probably seen a picture that Picasso did like once or twice. He's pretty popular, but I hadn't painted with Picasso in mind. It was just, this is my art style. And then it ended up kind of Picasso-y. I really like Picasso's work. I like Vincent van Gogh, or Gough. I don't know how to say his name. Vincent van Gogh is really interesting and sad because no one really noticed his talent until he was like dead. So that's very tragic. But he has a style that was pretty unconventional for the time period that he was painting during that time. It was more like his style was just weird for that time period. So I really like that about him. I think that an artist should try to find their own style, even if it is completely different, even if people say that it's ugly or not their favorite. So I like that about Vincent. I'm influenced by looking at my previous work. I like looking at what I did before, and even if it ends up different than what I want it to end up looking like, I like looking at my older work. Leslie Weaver Art. She's somebody that I found on Instagram a while back. She does a lot of beautiful feminine artwork, loose lines, really fun, fashion-inspired artwork, and I love her. Celia Tejada. She's one of the top designers in Pottery Barn, and her house, her wardrobe is just beautiful. It's like simple and chic while still being really elegant and bold and also functional. So you can't go wrong with that. And I love her as a designer and just as a creative influence. And then I'm also inspired by my sisters. They're all really creative. At the moment, I'm focusing on getting my name out there as an artist as much as possible, and doing as many gallery showings as possible so that everybody can see my art and know of me as an artist. I've heard this mentioned a lot, but it's really it's like really difficult balancing the business aspect as an artist, as well as being able to have time and energy to paint. Artists are pretty crazy because not only do they have to like have jobs to support themselves in the first place, like just to pay bills, they have to spend time as a business person for their art career, as well as have time to create. So I think that's the biggest challenge of being an artist. What advice would you give to your younger self? I think I would tell myself that it's really important to be yourself and don't try to copy other people. Being inspired by other people is one thing, but you're really cool and perfect the way you are. Definitely to dream more. Just life is heavy, but you don't need to stop dreaming and creating because of the heaviness of life. Have you ever tried any unconventional mediums? I don't think I studied the different art styles and art histories enough to know what is unconventional. I mean, I know kind of what was unconventional during certain time periods. But right now, I feel like my art style is in kind of generally unconventional. There's a lot of people that don't really care for it, and that kind of makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. I don't know. I think that's cool. I just paint whatever kind of flows out of me. It's not really like I'm going to paint this certain thing. I start with something in mind at first, but then it kind of becomes a whole different new thing that I didn't control or know what it was gonna become. So I think my style is pretty unconventional in the first place. Each time I paint, I try to do something that I haven't done before. So when I paint one thing, the next painting is most likely going to look completely different than the previous painting because I always try something new or different. Do you like listening to music or have any other type of background noise while you work, or do you prefer complete silence? I love having a movie that inspires me or music that I love on in the background. Right now, I really like 60s and 70s music. The song The Animals, Inside Looking Out, is one of my favorites right now. I just like how it sounds. I low-key play the keyboard. I've posted a couple of songs on SoundCloud, but I wouldn't call myself a pianist or whatever you'd call a keyboard person that plays keyboard, because I haven't had anyone teach me this is how you play the piano. So I make songs up on the spot, and then while I'm painting, I like playing those songs. I think that my song or the recorded songs are kind of like abstract keyboard music or abstract piano music, if that's even a thing. I am into movies, so I really like having a lot of different, like any genre on in the background. Like I really like John Wick, Play Misty for me. Lord of the Rings, of course. At Eternity's Gate is a really good movie too. Well, in my opinion, some people don't really like that movie, but it doesn't really actually matter what I have on in the background, just as long as, I don't know, it just depends on my mood. What's the best reaction someone has had to your artwork? So a couple of weeks ago, there was the opening reception for the gallery feature of my art at Phillips Gallery in Kalispell. I was shocked at the positive reaction that people had for my art, because I have had my art displayed in several places in town. There was like a hair salon in 2021, a gift shop, an antique store, and people had positive things to say. They were just like, oh yeah, I really like the art. And they'd even say like, there was a lady that was kind of interested in purchasing your art, but no one really purchased it. And for the Phillips Gallery opening, it was like at least 2 people were in tears as they were sharing like how much my art resonated with them. And yeah, I was shocked. I didn't know that people in Kalispell, Montana would understand my kind of artwork. There's a lot of landscape art, nature art, and things like bears and elk and just different things like that. There's nothing wrong with that kind of art. It's just the typical Montana art. And then to have people just respond so amazingly to my art that they're like they're in tears about the emotion that they feel when they look at my art. It literally meant the world to me that my art would resonate with people like that. And like 2 weeks in to my like the art feature for Phillips Gallery, half of my art has sold in 2 weeks. Like 7 paintings sold in the first 3 days. So it was just so shocking. It was like, whoa, like, is this even happening? Is this real? What do you hope people take away from your artwork? I hope that my artwork is something that they have never seen before. I hope that they are touched, like, emotionally by my artwork in some way. I hope that my artwork inspires them to daydream about life, because there's a lot of beautiful things in life that I think people might miss because they're so busy with the different things that they have to do day to day. I also hope that my art can be something that people can relate to or find almost therapeutic in certain ways. So my art will be on display. I'm the featured artist at Phillips Gallery in Kalispell, Montana, till the end of March. And then my art is also displayed at Sassafras in downtown Kalispell, Montana. My Facebook art account is Art by Laura Joy, as well as my Instagram. It's also Art by Laura Joy. I just want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about me and my artwork and my story. And thank you so much for listening.